This is an instructional video for the sketchbook assignment titled An Illuminated Letter, which is for Art 1. So let's start with a letter. I would choose a letter either visually it's appealing or even better, it's significant. So for me, thinking of my name, last name being Schultz, maybe the letter S. A couple other letters that are significant to me could be my first name that starts with the letter D, my children's names and what their letters start with. So first thing is to pick your letter. Once you decide on your letter, I think it's a good idea to look at some different lettering fonts to help give you some ideas. If you see a picture or an image of a letter style or font that you like, you can use it or you can create your own. If you've never had to draw thinking of like the shape of the letter instead of just using a line, but more of a shape form, I'll start with that as some tips or techniques. So first off is the letter. So for example, if you wanted to make this more of a shape instead of a line, you could draw the letter and then just recreate it again on the outer edges. So another example, the letter M. If you didn't like recreating it, so for example, like this, just recreate it. Maybe that's not thick enough, then you can go back on the inside and create another letter there, and then just erase what's on the inside as well. You can definitely have these in cursive, so just trying to think of for example, the letter L. It should have been rounded just a little bit more. So you go back and recreate that letter one more time, and then erase some of the lines that maybe overlapped, or maybe you do keep some of them. Like if I want this to look like this part of the L overlapped this, then I would erase those lines coming through. Same thing here. If this part sits on top, then I need to erase it like this. So that's how you can get more of a, like I said, a line versus a shape. Because this gives you the option to add designs and patterns into the inside of your letters versus like this. They're not going to stand out very much. So, getting a new piece of paper. Now that you've chosen your letter, from there, sketch it out, filling at least, if you're looking at the 9x12 paper, at least about half the page. It doesn't actually have to be on one half of the page. You can put it in the center and give yourself some breathing room. But as far as size, you want to kind of enlarge it with about half of the paper size, so about 6x9. If you're struggling to get your letters larger, you can always mark your paper. Let's say I want my letter to at least reach this to this, just kind of putting a marker for myself of has to reach this for height, and the bottom of it, this is kind of a halfway point, and maybe my sides. So sometimes I'll mark where that needs to fit in there so that I know when I'm drawing, it needs to make it that far around. So I'm going to start with the letter S for Schultz. So just kind of freehanding the letter S and then going back and recreating almost like another S. It's okay if these get close because I'm going to keep adding to my letter. So even though there's like these extra lines here, like this got thin and thicker, I'm not going to keep that. Just gonna kind of continue it. And S is one of those kind of funny, weird shapes that as I'm coming around, you know, as far as proportions, it's a little awkward. So don't be afraid to have these extra lines and then erase them later till you get the shape that you want. And maybe I don't like that there. That's okay. I can bring this around. Great thing about working with pencil first. And remember to draw lightly. Mechanical pencils are great for drawing light, or a number 2 pencil, which I'm using. Be careful with the drawing pencils that I've given you. We're going to be using those next week. Yay! But a lot of them have the darker graphite lead, so they can stain the paper, especially if you're doing a lot of erasing. Okay, so now how do I illuminate this letter? How do I highlight it? How do I highlight it? Make it important, make it stand out. I asked you guys to create at least 4 patterns or objects or designs added to it, as well as 4 different colors in your color scheme. So let's start with the 4 patterns or designs or images of other objects and things like that. So considering that the S is standing for Schultz, I could very well think of patterns and designs that I like, or symbols or images of things that represent my likes, my hobbies, or my interest. So let's see. I know I love polka dots. I like having things kind of wrap around other things. For example, I'm very nature oriented type person, meaning I love flower, tree, outdoor elements kind of added to my designs. So maybe I decide to wrap a vine around my S. So it's almost like some other S's wrapped around my letter S. Now you may be thinking, I don't know, I have some questionable drawing skills right now. That's why I took an art class. So don't, overwhelm yourself with trying things that make you feel like it's just too much. Like I say, patterns and designs. Do your best, and just remember you're taking this art class and we're going to keep working on these things. So having the vine wrap around, maybe it comes back around this way. And it's like, oh yeah, what is that? Maybe I can add a few little flowers, some other designs to it. Maybe it's got some thorns on it. And a lot of times when I'm drawing things that are new to me, I look at a picture of what they look like. So if I knew I was going to be drawing a flower or these little vines, look at pictures, because after a while, as you study them and you start practicing drawing them, you won't feel like you always have to look at a picture of something. But making that connection with what you see and what you're drawing, there's nothing wrong with, working on that and spending some time observing what things look like. And it comes around. So I could probably do this for a good 20 minutes, but I won't torture you guys with all my little drawings. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so start wrapping something around. Eventually, maybe this turns into, for example, maybe I start adding a vine and adding some flowers. This is just kind of a generic one. I'm just trying to show you how you can add these elements to your design. It's okay to repeat some of these designs. It kind of unifies it. So maybe I show this flower in a few other areas. Couple other things I really like, tree bark. Maybe I decide to add kind of a pattern. We'll be getting into textures soon. like how to recreate textures. You know, maybe there's some roots coming up. It's branching out into a tree. And then I could be adding things to the leaves a little bit later. So you don't have to have recognizable images. I had mentioned patterns and designs. This is something that you guys have had a little bit of practice with some of our previous sketchbook assignments. Maybe I spend a little time adding some designs. Checkerboard pattern. I don't think this turned out quite checkerboard, but it's a little design element. When I go to add my color, I could, you know, if I said checkerboard, I could add a design in there with colored pencils or markers. So let's pretend I made this a little more detailed and filled it in solid. But yeah, I could add a pattern that way. I do love polka dots. So maybe I had a polka dot design. I'd probably repeat some of these to kind of bring it all together. I feel like it needs a little something to unify the patterns in the other designs that I have. But I mean, you are allowed to have things in common, things that are not in common. Maybe the only thing they have in common is, you know, about you or what your letter, you know, stands for. You know, it's up to you as long as you have 4. Okay, so I would count this as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So already I have 5 different components. You can also add a border to your letter if you would like. That gives you another opportunity for adding design qualities. Maybe this letter goes outside of the box. So my tree is branching out, and then I could add designs here. So your chance to showcase and illuminate your chosen letter design. All right. After you have everything sketched out, if you want, you can outline. I enjoy outlining some of my design, but it's not required. But then add your color medium. Make sure you have at least 4 colors in your color scheme. Feel free to use markers, colored pencils, you know, your chosen materials. Okay. All right. Hope this was helpful.